Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining my session, ואני ממש מתרגשת לדבר היום על email marketing y todo lo relacionado con la localización y la traducción. Y давайте же скорее начинать. Probably you were like, whoa, what was that, Anna? And maybe you understood 1, 2, 3, or even all 4 languages that I use in my introduction. But what was the reason for that? And the reason is that we are going to speak today about multilingual email campaigns, creating emails in different languages. So the first thing first, let's get to know each other. My name is Anna Levitin, and I lead lifecycle marketing at Doorloop. Doorloop is a property management system. So we help landlords and enterprises to keep their property organized, and we help them to grow. And I personally very interested in the topic of different languages and cultures because I myself speak 4 languages and I have a May degree in cultural anthropology. So let's quickly go through the agenda to understand how we can connect email and different type of languages. So first of all, we're going to talk about why localization is important and what is the difference between localization and translation. We're going to talk about the processes that included in localization, specifically for localizing emails and everything what is connected to email. And eventually we want to start somewhere, right? So I will speak about where and how to begin, and also how to build a case and how to show to the C-suite, C-level, why localization is important. But before we will move to the session, I would like to ask you the question. How many languages do you use to consume information? And feel free to write it in the chat. I guess it's here or there. I will be really happy to receive your responses. So at this moment, you probably can ask me a legit question. Why run email in a few languages is so important when a lot of people can speak and understand English, right? And even this specific session, even I speak in English right now. So I have an answer for you. Localization is the basic personalization. In other words, if you do not localize your email, you are missing an important factor of personalization. And if it wasn't appealing enough, let me show you some stats. So researchers say that going multilingual increases the conversion rate by 30%. And I understand that we have a different crowd here, B2C, B2B, not everyone e-commerce, but just think about this conversion rate by 30%. 40% of consumers say that they will not buy in another languages. And you don't want to lose this 40%, right? And 56%, they would prefer to consume the content in their native language rather than get a lower price. Again, 56% of users. So now we understand that localization is important and it's crucial to invest in localization, but what it actually means, what localization means, and what is the difference with a translation. So is it enough only to translate your email, using AI technology or just copy paste the translation? Well, if you are aiming to have a bad customer experience, that could be enough. But because we are aiming to deliver the perfect experience for our customers, there are a few other aspects that I suggest considering when we are talking about localization and not only like word-to-word translation. So let's go over these different aspects. First of all, it's an accurate translation. So different words, different language, we all understand what we are talking about. Dialects and slangs. Again, Spanish in Guatemala and Spanish in Spain would be very different. And the same I can say about French language in Canada and in France. So we need to keep this in mind. Currency. For example, when I got email with pounds, with British pounds, I'm like lost. I really don't understand, how much it's in dollars or euros. Colors. So purple color, for example, in Japan, which is like historically was considered as a royal color, and yet you barely can find like email or web pages, landing pages that have purple color in Japan, of course. Measurement units. I love meters and kilograms, and don't talk to me in miles. Like I will not understand that. And I'm sure that not everyone of this session will agree with me. Punctuation. For instance, in French, the exclamation point, the question mark, and all form of sort of like high punctuation, they should always have a space before this. For example, you say bonjour, space, exclamation mark, right? Also, I can say from my personal experience, when I just joined an e-commerce company I worked for, I was thinking that it's a mistake. And I reached out to the translation team saying like, why you leave so many spaces in the French translation? So it wasn't anyone. Date and format and time format. This is something I really want to focus on, and I will have a slide later because it's very quick win, and it will help us to make like more localized email easily. Tone and formality, time zone. We are now in September, and I sort of like, there are 2 times in a year that I genuinely hate. It's about March and end of October, the beginning of November. Why? Because the clock in US are not changed yet, but Europe has already changed the clock from the summertime to the winter time. So for everyone who's planning to have a webinar or any time-sensitive promotion in the end of October or in the beginning of November, please make sure you have like one main time zone that you align, because it could be, for example, difference with ET time and GMT, like 7 hours, and then it will be 8. So keep this in mind. It's happening every time with me, and because we usually plan our activities like few months in advance, so we don't want to think in August about November. Public holidays. So it's a funny thing. Do you know, for example, that Friday 13 is not celebrated in Italy? Instead, they have a Friday the 17th. And also in some Spanish-speaking countries, it's Tuesday 13th instead of Friday. And the same, for example, about Mother Day, right? It's different, completely different time in the UK and in the US. May in the US and March, if I'm not mistaken, in the UK. And I can go on and on about these specific examples. But it's not only about like celebrating local holidays, and show their respect. It's also about don't spend time and energy and team efforts on something that will not convert. For instance, in Israel, where I'm located, we have a Yom Kippur, which is a fasting day. So the majority of the people, we don't use a phone. We pray. So imagine you are sending like a massive sale, I don't know, 60% off or product release, and you see like super low conversion, low open rate, CTR, like no interaction. And you might think that there is something like a technical issues, or form submission didn't work, or another things, or a checkout page, purchase page. But just think about this, that all these efforts didn't really convert because it was just another holiday. It's like the same, for example, you would like to send a gift guide in the lunchtime of December 25th, right? It's just wrong timing. And of course, cultural norms, values, images, illustration, and icons, what you can show, what is appropriate to show in some cultures, and what is not. So probably you see this list and you like, Anna, it doesn't seem like it's, it's all. And you know what? You are not mistaken. Why? Because there are so many more things to consider. And you see the list on your screen. I'm not going to go about every aspect, but just going to share some situations from my experience. For example, text direction, right to left, left to right. I happen to work with a lot of email campaigns in Arabic and in Hebrew. So the funny thing, well, it wasn't funny at that time, that the countdown, the timer, so the digits, they are written from left to right, but the the letters, they are from right to left itself. So you can't, when you code the timer, if you code and not use like a third-party supplier, you need to separate these blocks because they have sort of different directions. And exactly the same with the top navigation or a lower banner. It's sometimes confusing. And of course, the image and the CTA on the other side. So it's a lot of fun with text directions. And another thing, you see it last on your screen, device usage. So some countries, their initial access to internet, it's through the phone. So the first, actually not initial, yeah, the first connection to the internet was through mobile. So they don't really have a habit of entering web through the desktop. And this is something you have to consider when you build an email campaign for these countries. And of course, this list can go on and on: regulation, privacy policy, contact information. I guess each of us seen these emails, like completely written, localized and written in Portuguese, for example, and then the footer is yet in English. So again, I'm not saying that it's a bad experience and you should not send these emails, but there are always things to improve. And it all comes in the end of the day to the trust. And it's very easy to undermine this trust, right? But it's also good for us that there are tips that can help us and improve and personalize and make our emails look really localized. Let me show you a few examples. These are very nice emails from Mailjet. As you can see, the first version is created in English. It's a holiday poem. And then it was translation to French, German, Spanish. And you can see, for example, the translation in Spanish, it has another punctuation, right? In French, we don't see here examples, but as I told you, there should be like a space before the exclamation mark. So these are nice example, and you can see that also the text itself has a different length, and it's a little bit shorter for a German-based audience, and this has again different wording in Spanish. Unfortunately, I don't read French and German as well, so I only rely on English and Spanish. So when I talked about the trust, there are things that we can really fix very quickly and show some personalization, more personalization to our users. And let's talk about the date and time. So we all know that the majority of the world countries, they use day, month, year, right? The American system is a little bit different. It's month, day, year. And then we have China, Japan, Korea, where the year goes first, month, and day. And of course, in the ideal situation, you when you localize your email, especially when we are talking about sales, sales and sales extended till the date, and when you have this legal part in the footer, of course, it's perfect to localize it per each and every country. But if you don't have this opportunity, make sure that you use a safe version. And I put it on the screen. So, for example, you can write September or just, Sept 26, 2024. So in this case, right, if you send email in English to any other countries, they will be able to understand it. Now you're probably think, okay, Anna, I translated email, I localize it, right? I change it. I've heard about the design, I've heard about the slang, holidays. Can I finally send it, right? And I'm like, not really. Why? Because it's not only about email. And again, we want to give our user the best experience ever, right? So we have to think about the preference center. And it's very important to give user an option to change their communication language. For example, in the Netherlands or in United Arab Emirates, there will be a big segment of users that prefer to receive communication in English rather than a local language, right? So even if you are completely like, even if you are not able to send emails yet on a local language, at least you will know the amount of people that prefer to receive it in the another languages. So give them a choice to receive it. Form submission, and I think how many times like we've seen, for example, perfectly translated landing page, and I guess multilingual folks on this session will understand me. For example, you see it in French, and then you click form submission, like request demo, for example, and the form is yet in English, and then you receive a thank you message that also yet in English. And even if the landing page form, everything is in local language, you submit a demo request as an example, and then without any like specific notification, you actually receive a demo in another language, like in English, for example. So don't overpromise, sometimes like especially when we're talking about B2B and demo request, okay, it's fine if you can deliver the demo in a local language. It's better to keep everything in English. And of course, landing page, product, footer, legal content. There are so many aspects beside the email that I always recommend to translate. And some of these elements, like for example, footer, legal stuff, some landing pages, this is only, you only need to translate it once and you actually can reuse it. And I will be sharing soon some tips like on how to start and how to use, and how to make sure that you're not creating and not translating it from scratch every time. So we talk about email, we talk about like submission form, landing pages, and how to do all of this. It's very nice if you have a massive, large localization team and you have a native speaker on a team per each and every language and they in-house. But what if you don't? What if like the majority of us, you're a one-man band, or you have two people on your email team? It's okay. It's okay. And let me share with you actually how you can start. First of all, of course, it depends on your platform. And I'm not only talking about ESP, also on a platform where you build landing pages. And I know that the majority of suppliers, and it's very like positive change, they introduce at least translation solution. So first of all, talk with your platform, find the solution for like a technical solution for that. For example, from my experience in the fintech company that I worked for, we used a program, we used a platform that actually exported HTML, send only specific parts of this HTML to translator. So, for example, because it was a fintech, we had a large footer, like big legal part. So, for example, if there were no changes in this legal part in English, it wasn't sent to translation. So it's not only saved the time for translation, it also saved the budget. We didn't pay for translating this part. So it withdraws the wording from the HTML, then translator added, and as a result, I'm as a client, I receive like HTML in 8 different languages. Of course, there were some minor changes, but it worked really well. So there are a lot of multilingual solutions and great platforms. But if we need to speak about a little bit, a more manual job and how to start with it, so I really first of all recommend to make you like language member property or member attribute, whatever you call it in your system. So user can actually change, and you can have an understanding of how many users prefer to receive email in another language. Another thing is to break emails into blocks or snippets, because it really helps. As I said an example, if it's a massive legal footer, you actually can just use the same snippet per each email, or you can use the same snippet from the last year sale or from for the header. So it's all about like saving your time. Handlebars. So using by handlebars, and we are going back to like member properties and all the fields that you have in your ESP or CRM system. So using these handlebars, you can not only filter and understand the number of people who prefer to receiving messages in a different language, but also, for example, there is a special holiday in the country, or there is like a soccer match that's really important for this country. So you can set the settings that like the default version will be empty, and only for specific countries or languages there will be a message or another banner. And the last thing that we personally did, team I worked for at e-commerce brand, we created a massive spreadsheet with frequently used phrases, mostly for CTAs like buy now, sale extended, last minute delivery, and so on and so forth. So whenever, especially before the Christmas holidays, when the delivery changes every day, so it was very easy for me update CTA or update like pre-header in 13 different languages without actually speaking them, right? It was again in the manual solution, but it's something to start with. In the next slide, towards to the end of the presentation, I want to talk about the fact that we email marketers, as I guess majority will agree with me, we wear a lot of hats. And I'm not only speaking about like strategy, copywriter, developer, but all of us also need to wear a sales hat. You can prefer it, you can like it, or you can hate it, but anyhow, we need to do this. Why? Because we need to align and sort of sell our case internally, and we need to sync, to align with the general business goals of the company. So here you can see some examples that you can show to the different teams. For example, new markets research, right? It can be relevant not only for marketing, but also for sales, also for the product team. And, this is how you can sort of justify the need of translation and localization processes within your team. Uh, Performance improvements. Again, remember that we talked that 56% of users, they would prefer content in their language rather than receive a lower price. So we can talk about performance, which eventually will lead to sales, that will lead to the product adoption, and reduce the negative metrics like unsubscribe and so on and so forth. Again, it's a sales and product alignment. And even further, like if you work directly with the IT, with the security team, so you can say that it can improve deliverability, so it will result into better reputation for our IP and for our domains. Again, sometimes you need to be creative here, but you need to see like the entire, company goals. And of course, sales. Either sales, like better conversion, conversion to the sales, or any events, your like other events that you track, for example, registration to the webinar, to the platform, to conferences, like, or special, by localizing your emails, you can have also special promotion for a specific country, just to check how it will convert for this specific localization. So moving forward to the takeaways, the number one thing is that email localization is far beyond the translation, right? When we want to have a poor experience, we just cannot translate email. But when we want to have really fulfilling customer experience, we need to localize it by considering cultural differences. And we talked about this, all the holidays, language, and local specifics. Localization is not only about personalization, it's also about accessibility. So imagine that there are people that couldn't access your emails because they just don't know the language you send emails in, right? And the last one, you need to get an internal support from the team, because oftentimes, from my experience, localization is not a high priority for the company. But when you aligned the localization goals with the other goals of the company, when you get support from sales, from product, this is exactly what will help you to run and at least to test this project. So thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure to present today, and I will be here in the chat there, I think. So please feel free to reach out in the chat to ask me questions, to share your opinions, to share the languages that you speak. And, you're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. See you.